Welcome back, everybody, to another Q&A with Dr. J and GC. Today, Dr. J, first of all, how are you today?
I'm doing really good. Yeah,
Good.
thanks for asking. How about you?
Good. I think we have Florida weather today here in Jersey. It's going to be in the 70s. Yesterday it was 80.
Oh, wow.
I
So
still have snow on the ground outside, but somehow it's warmed up.
I just got back from Ohio and that's where I grew up, and it was just that gray, overcast, rainy, cold day that lasts all winter. And I was like, thank gosh, I don't live in Ohio anymore. I'm very grateful to live in Florida. So,
I can understand why.
eh, yeah.
So today, I would like you to answer a question, or more, if you could explain not only the biochemical pathways, because people have seen the chart and we've talked about individual ones and the genes up, down the pathway, but I think it would be helpful for people to see the same thing as not one gene, one problem, not one system in isolation. But can you explain the pathways and how they all work together in terms of genetic healing and things that you do?
Yeah, and I'm glad you're asking this because this is what really sets our company apart. And it was something that I discovered through practice, through the clinical practice of working with this genetic material, because I think we all started, everybody that sort of is looking at genes all started with that MTHFR, the mother flipper fracker gene, and thinking that was the be all and end all. And if you had it, you have an issue. And if you don't have an issue. And it just became a one gene, one issue kind of topic. And as I began practicing, I realized that the pathways interact and there's a dynamic nature to it. And so I want to show you, I'm going to bring up our very favorite biochemical pathway. Biochemical, it was like, I can't believe I'm so much into biochemistry because I hated chemistry and I
You
failed it
failed
twice.
biochemistry,
I
right?
did. I failed it twice because I didn't get it and I didn't understand the significance of it. And even in studying it when I was in medical school, it was like, okay, so what? What are we going to
Mm.
do with that? But now that I have worked with it for a number of years, I realize how important it is for really understanding the body and really getting into the true causes and ultimate bottom level causes of imbalances in the body. And these pathways, I started to realize that we could understand them, work with them, upregulate them, but they were dynamic, that they affect each other. So you turn one pathway on and it affects another and another. There's a ramification for everything you do. And in the middle there, there's that MTHFR. And when you start to give somebody methylfolate thinking that's the thing to do, lots of things are going to start up. And we've talked about that before when we covered methylation. But the interesting thing is you can see these pathways bump up against each other, almost like knobs. They will turn other pathways on. So when we started looking at it in the clinic, we were doing some testing and working with patients and seeing what happened, and often using ourselves as guinea pigs for this process. We saw that when we regulated one pathway, another one would start working better or would be affected, or we had to balance that now. So we found this dynamic nature through practice of, okay, what's happening now? We turned this on, now we're seeing this happen. So I want to kind of orient people to what it all means, what we're looking at here, what are the different pathways. And often when I teach this topic, I'll draw a circle around like a category or a particular pathway. Like this one up here in the top left is the histamine pathway. So histidine is broken down into histamine and methylhistamine. Again, anywhere you see a purple balloon is an area where you could have inherited a genetic variant that will slow down that process. So in this whole pathway, that's what we're looking at. The darker purple are the ones that we found to be most clinically relevant and able to work with more readily. The ones in pink are like experimental. We're not sure what they do anymore or if they're even important to pay attention to. And that's why, again, with our company, the difference between like other companies that download all the possible genes they can and then try to come up with a supplement program based on that, don't understand this dynamic nature of these pathways. But this second pathway here, This is where we make energy out of our food. It's how we turn food into actual energy in the form of ATP. So genetic variants here in this pathway are going to cause fatigue and weight gain and high cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, potential gallbladder problems. So it's a big one to pay attention to. And we found that if we started there, that's mitochondrial area, which is so important to pay attention to, that when we upregulated the function of the mitochondria, a lot of the other problems or genetic variants started to work better. And what we found was that they all require ATP. They all require energy. All of the enzymes in our body require energy. So we found that to be like the most critical place to start. The next pathway here is the nitric oxide, cardiovascular, inflammatory pathway. Genetic variants here can lead to high blood pressure, all kinds of cardiovascular problems, inflammation in the body, potential cancers are here. Iron overload is here. Neuron damage is here. And then over here, this is the brain chemistry area. It's how we turn amino acids into serotonin and dopamine, and we make adrenaline and noradrenaline. So we see a lot of emotional mood kind of disorders here when there are genetic variants. And that's really where I started because of my own journey, is I've talked about many times, but this is the area that gets a lot of people's attention because it's so frustrating when you're anxious or you're depressed or you're OCD or you're too angry or irritable. This area has gotten a lot of attention, but it also is affected by the nitric oxide pathway and the mitochondrial pathway. If we upregulate those, it upregulates. And then over here, this one is very famous. This is the methylation pathway. And when you turn those pathways on, they also affect the brain chemistry. We make something called tetrahydrobiopterin, and it turns this pathway. So you can see they bump up against each other. And then down here on the bottom right, we're looking at detox. And when you upregulate methylation, detox turns on and you start to dump all the stuff that's in your body. And if you don't know what's going to happen downstream, you're going to create another problem. And so, again, understanding what happens when you turn on methylation, what happens when you turn on the brain chemistry area, what happens when you turn on nitric oxide. You got to understand the dynamic nature. And I know that's a lot. And I realize that most people aren't up to that. They're not up to understanding all of this. I have it in my head only because I've been doing it for many years. And so that's why I created a software program that'll do that. Look at that interaction and calculate, okay, if we turn this one on, we got to make sure that we balance this down here because this is what's going to happen. It was all done through the software. And so you don't have to think about it. It's done for you.
Yeah, and I think the key takeaway here, for me at least, is how nothing in the body works in isolation. I always say everything is food, and that includes everything we take in that we eat is one thing, but
Yeah.
then our lifestyle is also food, the habits that we have, the amount of social media we take in, the news that we take in, right? All of that is
Yeah.
affecting some piece of the body, and mostly because of hormones and neurotransmitters and enzymes. There's this whole big thing going on behind the scenes, but just for people to remember, you can't affect, let's say, detox without affecting something else, right?
Yes.
So when you go and somebody's on Instagram saying everybody needs to do this detox, great. A, do you really need to? And B, do you know what's going to happen? Is there somebody there to help you through the result of that if it isn't exactly positive?
No, you're exactly right. A couple of things I want to unpack there is when we turn these pathways on, right, your body detoxes naturally. So as a functional medicine practitioner in the past, I would have put people on detox programs, but they're harsh and they're really tough on the kidneys and the liver. And but we want the body doing it because how often do you get exposed to chemicals and toxins?
All the time.
All the time, 100%. You can't get away from them at this point. So we want the body doing it efficiently, not overdoing it, but constantly detoxing, because otherwise you're going to build up toxins and they're going to create problems. And then you're going to try to detox it and get it out of the body. And it's harsh. But if you do it slowly and gently and consistently, that's the key. Get the body doing it itself, which it is fully capable of if we give it the right nutrients, the right cofactors. And that was the key. All these purple balloons have very specific cofactors that fire them up and get them working faster, make up for the fact that you have a slow moving enzyme there. You add in a cofactor and it speeds it up, but it's very precise. This GAD enzyme at the bottom here, it turns glutamate into GABA. Turns out it's a B6 and selenium dependent enzyme. And if you don't have enough of those nutrients, glutamate's going to build up and it can cause neuron damage. But if you have enough, it turns into GABA, which is your calming neurotransmitter. So that's the way we look at this. What is the exact nutrient that you need for your genetic variants to really get all of these pathways working at optimal speed? So you're detoxing correctly, you're making neurotransmitters correctly, you're breaking them down correctly, you're methylating, you're repairing your DNA, you're making energy out of your food, you're breaking your histamine down. That's really the key to what we're doing that's very different. And it is a paradigm shift. So to come back to what you said, again, how you eat, your stress levels, your emotional levels, your environment has a very real effect on how much support you will need, but also balancing these pathways changes that too. So if you upregulate your dopamine and get your brain balanced, you're not as addicted to the social media or scrolling on your phone or addictive substances, cigarettes or alcohol or drugs or whatever it is. We're incredibly designed to be addictive. We get those dopamine hits when we do something that's enjoyable or rewarding. And that little ding that you hear on your phone, boom, dopamine hit, and it keeps you addicted. But if you can get your brain balanced and you can go, oh, I'll get that later, and it becomes a more of a balance. Or down here, we look at that COMT enzyme, and it's how we break down our stress hormones. If you are not breaking them down, you're already wired for increased stress. So your threshold is high. You've already got a lot of adrenaline, so it doesn't take much to get you into an agitated state. But then when we bring you down to a balanced state, you're not as easily triggered by drama and stresses in your environment. So it goes both ways. And that was the paradigm shift for me. And talking to my patients, it takes several iterations of that for them to understand it. And down here in the energy production pathway, we beat ourselves up because we don't have enough energy, we're not exercising, or we're not eating right. And it's because you're not making energy out of your food efficiently, and you're not making ATP, and your body is starving, so it's going to crave the wrong things. So it drives you to eat badly. And we can say, oh, don't eat that. Why are you eating that? And berate ourselves. But if you get this balance, then you go, this doesn't even sound good. It sounds unhealthy. I think I'll choose the healthier option. So that has been the biggest paradigm shift of this whole journey. It was like, wow, when we get everything balanced, the body makes better choices and doesn't react to the stress and stays more balanced. And so that's my story. I know it's a lot.
I have one question about the chart. You mentioned the pink balloons, the dark purple balloons, but I see pale purple balloons that you didn't mention.
Yeah. Pale purple balloons are probably big players. I add things into this chart as time goes on that I think are bigger players. We have a little more information about them, but I didn't see them play a huge part in clinically when we were working with these genetic variants.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to close the loop in case somebody else was also looking at those saying, wait, she didn't tell me what those were.
Yeah. Yeah, the pink ones, I don't find them to be very important. Occasionally, if you have like several genetic variants there, it might show up as a problem for you. But often when we balance the dark ones, then everything else seems to fall into place. We don't have to look at all of them. And that's, again, it's that left brain, as much data dump as you can, and then try to sort it out. We were looking at clinically what happens when we balance the core ones. And that's why we only report on about 600 genes. We do have what's called a polygenic risk score. That means you're adding up several genes to give a risk in a category like anxiety or whatever. But these were the big players when we did find that when we turn on methylation or we turn on the vitamin D receptor, or we turn on the mitochondria, a lot of other things start to work correctly. And then you don't need to take so many supplements. You take the core ones that are going to make it all work. You don't need to take a bunch of detox. Methylation is going to turn on your detox. We just have to make sure that you're supported down below if there's variance there. So it makes your program. I know somebody was talking to me about they were using one of our competitors, and they were taking over 100 supplements. And I'm like, oh, dear God, your body can't really sort
What?
that out. You can't sort that out. And you're pushing one pathway this way and you're pushing another that way, or you're not pushing this one enough. It isn't precision. It's shotgun. It's shotgun medicine. That's the way that we have found it to be very effective for all kinds of conditions. When we get those key genes balanced, everything else starts to work correctly. That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
And I think we should let our people digest this.
it's a lot. I
Feel
know.
free to go back and replay the parts that you might have glazed over.
Right.
It is a lot, but if you think about our bodies are so miraculously designed, and this is just a behind the scenes look at some aspects of the design.
Yeah.
And I think everybody listening inherently knows that if one thing's out of whack, other things are going to be out of whack. If we don't feel well in a little bit of some, like our brain, if we have a headache, it
Yeah.
infects our whole day and changes our energy and this and that. So this makes a lot of sense, even though it might look complex at first glance.
Yeah. And these, just to put it in perspective, all of this is happening thousands of times a second
Oh God.
inside our cells, in every cell of the body. So it isn't just the one little organ doing this. Your whole body is doing this. And our genes code for it and tell us how well it's going to do it. So it is complicated, but it's really logical when you follow the pathways and go, oh, I see why adrenaline builds up in me and I get anxious, or I see why I can't handle toxins or sulfur foods, or it's all very logical. When I start to explain it to people, they're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. I have never been able to tolerate sulfite medications or eggs, garlic, and onions, and that explains it. So they get that aha moment of, oh, wow, it just makes so much sense. It explains a lot.
And that aha moment is where better health, better feeling starts.
Yes, and compassion too for ourselves.
Mhm.
Wow, it wasn't because I'm a bad person and I was having bad thoughts.
Yeah,
Or
bad person, I ate potato chips. Oh my God.
I have to admit, I do that too once in a while. I like the vinegar, salt and
Salt and
vinegar.
vinegar. Oh my
Oh,
gosh, they're the best. Yeah.
so good.
Okay, we agree on that. That's good.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Really important stuff. And again, not to make it complex, we're trying to make things simple. And if the overview of the biochemical pathways seems too much, we have individual pathways. All these Q&As are designed to really get down to the nitty-gritty and help you understand what's possible for your body and your health based on the research that Dr. J has done. So, all of that to say, thanks for being here. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you'll share if you know anybody that you think is geeky into science, wants to know more about how their bodies work. Share the YouTube channel and send your questions, info@myhappygenes.com. We'd be happy to answer them in a Q&A video for you.
Yes, please share. We really appreciate that, helping to get the word out.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, GC.
Thanks, Dr. J. I'll see you again soon.